All right. We're going to give it just a few seconds. I know I'm super early, but I was too excited to wait. So we're going to pause this recording until we get everybody in here, and then we're going to get started. All right. So one of my favorite things about having our Seizing Happy Community Plus is being able to bring incredible women to talk about their journey and experience, because it is so important and valuable that we see other women doing it, that we see other women changing their lives, rebuilding, starting from scratch and kicking ass at it. And so today we have the incredible Toni Jones joining us. After 6 years as a life coach and as a mental health advocate for women and for youth, she completely rebuilt her life, and she is now an Affirmations musician. And I discovered her music by accident on Spotify. Was kind of like looking around for our weekly song, which is something that we do every Monday here inside the Seizing Happy community. And when we do the weekly song, it's so much fun because it's a way to kick off, your Monday with energy. So I'm like doing my research, looking for music that I think is going to be great. And I found you, Toni, and I immediately fell in love. So welcome, and thank you so much for being here. How is your day going so far?
My day is beautiful. It's slow and paced out. So that's how I like to start it off.
I like that. Beautiful and slow. Why do you think it is that we so often aim for fast-paced days? What is it about that feeling that we've been taught that doing and checking things off the list and like I'm hustling and I'm working? Like, what do you think it is about that is so deeply instilled in our minds that we keep searching for it, even though at the end of the day, we don't feel the satisfaction from all the rushing?
Yeah. So what we have to understand, I like to answer that question with a bit of education. Our ancient thought leaders, gurus, philosophers from all parts of the world, even religious disciples, they all had different messages, but they all came down to this one core message. And it's about knowing what you are, knowing who you are. Know thyself. What does that even mean? And knowing what you are, knowing who you are, is all about knowing your design. The brain is not just a brain. A heart is not just a heart. The gut is not just gut. DNA is not just DNA. Blood is not just, I can go on and on and on. Our senses are not just senses. They're a spiritual technology. And see, when you understand that you are a spiritual technology and a physical embodiment, it's like you're a physical manifestation of a spiritual technology. And we are like the buttons to press to interact with that technology, right? So we're programmable beings because we are that technology. You can program the technology to do certain things and operate in certain ways, communicate in certain ways. So when you understand that you are a programmable vibrational being, you understand that there can be some messaging that appeals to your gut, that appeals to your brain, that appeals to your heart frequency, that appeals to your five senses. And those databases can download that messaging as a program, as a belief system, as a identity, if you will. And so you get hardwired at a very early age because the very system that we challenge and that we advocate against and that we try to beg for change, they take us, from our parents. I won't say take, that's an aggressive word, but they enroll us at a very early age and keep us for about 18 years away from our parents, our culture, majority of our lives, majority of our lives, majority of the day, majority of the year. We're being programmed in an education system that indoctrinates us with believing that our identity, our worth, our validation is defined by hard work and labor. And that's an advantage to the toxic capitalistic society. I'm not saying capitalism is toxic. I'm saying that there is a shadow side to capitalism that is toxic. So when we talk about the overdoing, the overworking, that impulse that just comes up in our brain the first thing in the morning to be busy, to be about agenda, we have to understand that we started out with an indoctrination that programmed our heart frequency, our brain frequency, our sensory, everything with identifying ourselves as laborers, as workers. You see what I'm saying? So we're coming up against a generational indoctrination, especially if you're melanated. You know, the history of melanated people being identified with laborers it's just that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But all in all, when you are in a Western society with education systems that are training vibrational, spiritual, divine human beings as only physical workers, yeah, you're going to wake up in the morning and think about work and all the things. You're going to think about being a parent as work. You're going to think about marriage as work. You're going to think sex as work. You're going to think eating and working out as work, and fitness. Everything is work, because that's what we've been programmed as, you know?
I think there's so much in what you just said that I would love to unpack. But the most powerful that stood out to me is the list of things that you just mentioned right now. Your marriage, being a mother, taking care of your body, thinking of all of those things as work. How much joy are we missing out on because of this programming? Because I'm not saying that working out doesn't have its challenges, because it does. But when you approach it from the get as work, instead of this is how I can cherish my body today, this is how I can make this vessel stronger today, this is how I can help move some of the energy in here that is just pent up and doing things to me. I'm going to go out, I'm going to walk, I'm going to be upside down for a little while. You know, when you approach it just as work from the start, how much joy are we missing out on with this programming, you know? Yeah. And based on everything you just said, my next question to you would be, is a two-part question. First is, how do we undo this programming? And then the second part of that is, when did you uncover this piece of knowledge that is, we are programmed? When did you discover, here's my programming, and this is not helping me, and I don't want this anymore, and I'm reprogramming?
Okay, I'll share a juicy story about how I got into it. I was dating this guy that swept me off my feet years ago. Had to be 2009. And for 8 months, I took care of his mother, his elderly mother. She was the meanest woman on the planet I've ever met. And he was fighting a case in California. And at that time, I lived in New York. And I was just caught up, you know, codependency, all that stuff. Before I knew all the buzzwords, that's what was happening. And so the anxious attachment, all of that stuff. And it got to a point where it was just like my nature was being like completely toxified. Like I was getting sick because I just felt like my mind and my vibration was being played and manipulated with. So at the time, I was a substitute teacher here in Michigan. And because I ended up moving back, and I just Googled the word manipulation, and then I went down a rabbit hole because one of my hobbies is research. I do like research papers for just as fun, and so I went down that rabbit hole, and manipulation led me to narcissistic personality disorder. I never heard that terminology, and so when I was looking at the traits of people who have that disorder, I was like, oh my God, this is him. And when I look at the traits of the people they prey upon, I was like, that's me. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, what is this world? And I was like, psychology. I was like, I'm going back to college to get my degree in psychology. And so I became like a mad scientist. Like I was like, I can't get lower than 97% on any of my tests. And I grew up with thinking that I was creative and I wasn't smart. I was dumb. I believe that about myself because the teacher told me that, but that's a whole nother story. And so I was getting straight A's on this stuff, and I was just in it. Like, you should have seen me during my finals. It was madness, but I loved it. I felt savage about learning about my brain, my behavior, and the attributes and the variables that go into this tapestry of me. And so getting into it was the toxic relationship situationship I was in that led me to want to see why, what is happening? Am I being manipulated? Because I feel that way, but he also loves me. And like, I was just confused. So that was, I used that darkness to see where I could have some enlightenment, you know? And through that enlightenment, I got educated to learn about my design. So I think that point of entry, I can't say everybody's going to be a psychology nerd as I was, but I think it's very important for people, if you are human with a brain, learn what this thing does, learn what this thing is. You don't even have to go to school. Go on Pinterest, go on Instagram. There's so much content, YouTube out here for you to learn some basic understandings of what you are, you know, what your technology is and how it can be vulnerable to people who know how to manipulate and influence it. And so I think that that's a great point of entry to amplify your understanding of who you are, how to operate it and heal from the indoctrination of identifying yourself as work and laborer. And that's what my journey was. When I got into psychology and started learning about human behavior and how my brain works, how my mind works, how my heart and behavior is influenced, man, it catapulted my understanding that, oh, I have to heal from this. This is like it's not just my mental health. This is a collective experience that humans are going through. Mental health is a epidemic. It's the truest pandemic that's going on in the world is mental health, mental illness. Well, because we've been compromised by our ignorance of knowing what we are and our education around it. And so I believe that learning what you are is healing in it by itself. Because when I was learning those 0 to 7 years of what happens between those years of that age, from the time that you are being formed in your mother's womb to 7 years old, I was like, oh my gosh, this is why I have this mindset around money. This is why I have this mindset around intimacy and love and so on. And so just learning that opens up a world of awareness. And we all know, or we all should know, that awareness is healing on its own because you bring what's in the dark into the light and you're aware of it now, which empowers you to make conscious choices because you have options now. It's not just in the dark, right? So I would, so essentially what I'm saying is learn about what you are. That's one way to start the healing or deepen your healing or expand your healing. Learn what this does and what it can do. The second part of your question about how do we heal from workaholism and doership. I think it's all about creating, not
How so?
trying to fight the old. Okay, if you want to, okay, I don't want to get neuroscience nerd on you.
No, girl, you get as neuro as you want. You go all the way in there.
But
go all the way in there.
There's a term called, we've heard a lot of people on TED Talks and everywhere talk about it's mindset. Change your mindset. Okay, what does that look like? Okay, because we've learned things from A to B to C to 1 to 2 to 3. So give me steps. What are the steps? Just share them. I may not do them, but share them. So when neuroplasticity basically says that you can change your mindset by creating, okay, by nurturing, by building. Okay, what do I mean by that? Okay, so you have this old mindset that says, I'm a laborer, I'm identified with working, I only get praise and validation and love when I'm doing something for someone, if I'm extending and giving, working for something or someone, right? So this mindset has been encouraged by society, religion, family, work, friendships, marriage, motherhood. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So this mindset has strength. It has a collective support system to sustain itself. So then you come with this new thought that's like putting myself first is priority. I love myself. And as true as that message is, as much as we are fans of that message and we're like, ooh, that message, it does not have a support system as much as a support system of that old paradigm. So what do we have to do to give that new thought that support system? We have to feed it. We have to create a new way of thinking. So how do we do that? We give it the messaging. We give it the people and the conversations, the affirmations, the self-talk, that new thought needs to grow and expand. This is all happening in the brain. That's why it's hard for when we've been eating whatever and we haven't been working out. That's why it's hard to even do the new routine, because we have this old paradigm that has all the strength, So in order for us to reduce the appetite for the bad foods, we have to eat the right things. And the more we strengthen the do's, the don'ts are really become irrelevant because they get weaker, right? So we have to approach the healing process in smart ways, because again, spirituality, we have to demystify spirituality sometimes, because it's very much a smart technology. The design of it is brilliant and it's very detailed, right? So when we're creating this new mindset to heal from workaholism, we have to understand that we have to participate in that. We have to create opportunities of beingness, play, fun. Just put 10 things on the list that you have to do a day and remove six. See what comes up for you. Journal about that. That's entertaining this new thought of putting myself first, that I'm identifying my worth through beingness, not just doing all of those 10 things. Play with beingness, being your sustainable state, well-being being your sustainable state. Just play with it, experiment with it. Write 10 things down and remove 6 of them. Do you still feel worthy? Do you still feel like, oh my God, what can I do with the rest of my day? Like, play, have fun, just play around and say, okay, I'll do 20 minutes of work. Just entertain the new way of thinking. So I do believe that creativity, building, nurturing your beingness, and you believing that your identity and your worth is defined by how you feel about yourself, and how you're being while you're doing is important as well. When you're doing the emailing, when you're ironing the clothes, doing the laundry and cooking, it's not just about the doing. You can have a high active, productive day, but how are you feeling when you're doing that? Check in with yourself, breathe, nurture yourself, romanticize your workspace. Instead of using the fluorescent lights and the house lights, put candles on. If you work in a cubicle area, bring it soft, make it soft, So I said a lot, but essentially what I'm saying, there's a method to the madness. And I hate to give this as though this is a universal recipe for everyone, because healing is messy. Some things work and some things don't, depending on where you're at. But I truly believe creativity, nurturing, and building it strengthens that new way of thinking about identifying your worth, identifying your life through your being and not your doing. And when you add that power of intention and that feeling to that, it supersedes, it's like superpower, supercharges that new mentality and weakens the old, if that makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense. I love that you said the more we strengthen the do's, the don'ts become irrelevant. The new do's of creating that space, of romanticizing your workspace. I think that that's brilliant in and of itself, because we have a lot of entrepreneurs here inside the Seizing Happy community, but we have a lot of 9-to-5ers that are aspiring entrepreneurs who are looking to make that transition, who are looking to make that change. And in nurturing yourself in that process, in walking with kindness and with self-love, and with those affirmations, as you cross that bridge from one space in your life to another, It makes that transition all the more beautiful, all the easier, all the more exciting. And I love what you said about have some fun. I was recently listening to a podcast by Sahara Rose. She has this podcast named the Higher Self Podcast, and she was talking about, why are you doing that? And when you answer with just for fun, like, that's a waste of time. If you're doing it just for fun, then it's a waste of time. That's the preconceived notion. If it doesn't have an ROI at the end, some sort of ROI of the investment of your time, then it's a waste of your time. But that is that is a terrible piece of programming that we have been given, which is what we've been talking about so far, because doing things just for fun is why it is our natural essence, and it's why we're here.
Yes,
I believe
it's our
we're
purpose.
here to enjoy. We are here to be in joy. We are here to be in happiness. We are here to be in love. We are here to give and take from that space of love and joy and happiness. And I mean, when you see a child before they enter school, everything they do is just for fun, even when they are learning, when they're grabbing things and putting it in their mouth and figuring out what is this and does this bite and does this hurt and tumbling around, they're having fun, and there's a moment I feel where we forget that. We forget to have fun while we're doing. We forget to stop and have a silly dance break in the middle of our day just because we can, just because we have this moving, able body. Why not shake it around, right? And so I wanted to ask you also, speaking of this transition, speaking of making things fun, speaking of getting rid of the old programming that no longer serves us, and having that awareness being the first step of healing. In your transition from having 6 years as a life coach, so you gave us a little bit of you went nerd crazy on your psychology degree, and you were like research and learning and doing. I feel that because I'm a nerd at heart too. And when I find a topic that I'm fascinated about, I'm just like, this is all I want to eat, sleep, and drink all the time. Like, this is just all I want to learn. Where did that take you into being a life coach? And then how did that transition into being an affirmation musician? That's a very different jump. So how did that happen?
Yeah. Well, when I was getting my degree in psychology, I knew I wanted to be like a psychology entrepreneur. Like, I knew I was learning enough about the career, the job of psychology, and it was vastly different from the study of psychology. And I was like, yeah, that's not for me, and for those it's for, go right ahead. It's just for me, like, I just couldn't do it, So I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur that teaches about psychology, healing, self-care. And so when I launched my business, I did life coaching for 6 years, but I launched it during the boss bitch era, excuse my language. And so it was all about being getting the bag, how to get 6 figures in 6 weeks. And a lot of women's empowerment spaces were solely focusing on the messaging of productivity, of work and labor, and benefiting the rewards of that. Teen No Sleep was a part of the social media timelines. And I was just like, this does not resonate with me at all. Like, why do I feel like I'm the only one that feels this way? Like, is something wrong with me? Am I lazy? Do I not want to work or apply myself? Like, and I started to believe like I'm just naturally lazy and I have to push through to work, get this work, And so for me, I adopted that for a long time, to just push through, even though I knew that message did not resonate with me. And so I wanted to just at least complement that with, hey, y'all, don't forget your self-care. Don't forget your well-being. Like, I message it in a way where this was just a piece of your life, not the core of your life. Because I felt like to message it in a way that's a core of your life and that fuels everything else was too aggressive for the mindset of women and the mind and the culture of women's empowerment. And so that wore me out, because I felt like I had to shrink and cut and paste and cookie cut my depth, my advocacy for leading your lives from a space of well-beingness. I felt like that was too much. So I had to shrink it. And I started burning myself out with working with my clients, because I was doing a lot of emotional laboring. I was doing a lot of the enlightenment work, meaning that I was bringing them into awareness rather than them bringing themselves into awareness. And so in 2000, I say 18, I just was in prayer meditation. I was like, I'm about to be burned out like the rest of my colleagues and community of women that's in entrepreneurship. And I just said, God, you have to give me something, like create something where I can help women believe that they can integrate well-being into their high active, productive lives. And I got that download within a day, affirmation music. And I was like, oh my God. And so I Googled affirmation music, and no one coined that phrase, that terminology. And I was like, I get to do this. I'm the one that gets to spearhead or create affirmation music. And so I started to do my research, like on all the music platforms, to see who's creating music like this, like conscious music, music that's affirmation like. And I just wasn't like, it was good, but it wasn't bopping the way I wanted to bop. When we think about pop culture, pop music, or the musics that we play all the time, like a Beyonce, Megan Thee Stallion, Celine Dion, this music that we just love, it has a hypnotic aspect to our mood. And a lot of the music that I was hearing on the conscious space, it didn't have that hypnotic aspect to like enroll our mood into it, to change our mood immediately. And so I was like, I wanted to bop. I wanted to be something that women like can't stop playing. And so I was like, I'm about to create some fire affirmation music. And I didn't know what I was doing, but I had no doubt. So it was the first time I created something without doubt. So that immediately appealed to my heart, right? And so I went to California for a month. I brought all my journals, all the books, that I highlighted, or, notes, Post-its that I've had over the years, from the retreats that I went to, the spiritual programs I've been involved. And I went to California for a month and wrote affirmations for the grown ass woman. And I created those 9 songs to represent the 9 months it takes a woman to create a life. Because I wanted women to, as soon as they push play, the woman of their dreams is being birthed, and they can't stop it. Like it's beyond their choice now, because the only way you can avoid that growth and that awareness is just not playing the music, And so that's kind of like the journey or behind the scenes story of how I went from a psychology student to a wellness life coach to turn affirmation musician. And it has been a glorious journey.
And did you have any experience with music or writing music or anything like that before?
None. Absolutely none. And that alone, I like to share this in my interviews because maybe it'll open something up in another person, is that that experience alone told me that you don't have to overscript your lives. You don't have to over vision board your life. Like, you literally, everything that you plan and you set for goals in is an experiment. You're in the lab. You're setting your intentions. You're imagining, you're like, I want it to be like this. Let's see if this happens. Let's see if I work this many hours. Let's see if I learn about this skill. Let's see if this could bring me the life that I want to see for myself, the results I want to see. It's all an experiment. Don't get too attached to the outcome of your strategy and your script, because there's a divine plan that can interrupt that all and just completely contradict your plans and end up superseding that and actually producing the results that you wanted to get without your effort. Your surrendering should be the goal. Your ease and how you feel while you're doing should be the vision board of all vision boards. It changed my paradigm of thought of how to embody the life that I desire, because I did not plan for affirmation music. I created that first album for my clients. That was not to turn into a musician. It was after a year of seeing what was happening with that music and seeing and really seeing what was happening with my career, because I was a full-time, I was working full-time as well, but it had an entrepreneurial blueprint. I was working in high schools as a dream director. And as I saw that career crumbling and my appetite for being a life coach it was just, everything was falling apart. But this music was expanding and growing. I was like, this can't be the way. It's too easy.
Oh, I love that. This can't be the way. It's too easy. Why? Why don't we just let it be easy? What is it about the desire that if it ain't hard, it ain't worth it? And it is false. It was easy. You have over 3 million streams right now on Spotify in your music, and it was easy. Can you talk more about that? When did you accept that it could be easy?
Well, I always, okay, so you asked me, when did I accept it? I've always known it could be. There's a scripture in the Bible. I grew up Christian. There's a scripture in the Bible that says, Jesus says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. So even though there is a yoke, meaning that there is a yoke and a burden is something that's still something that's holding you, has a stronghold to where you have to put in effort, but it's easy and it's light. And that scripture always stood out to me. Like, I was like, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. How can a burden be light? A burden is supposed to be heavy. So I always had this sense of that there was another way that included my ease, that included my light, but I did not see, or I did not have the education or the teachers to show me that this way was possible. So I always had a knowing. But when I accepted it, was in 2019. When all my life, everything, friendship circles, identities, everything was just slipping through my hands, and I could not control. I could not do any of my healing practices to maintain the familiar. I could not heal the way I wanted to heal. I couldn't do self-care. I couldn't eat the way everything was just slipping away, the world that I've known. And I had to finally surrender. The wailing, the crying, just the process of having to let go. It was a hell, but it was a heaven at the same time. And I ended up being in a zero state. And I said, if I'm going to have to be here, what does it look like to building my life from me being happy first? And I had to ask my question. I had to ask the sacred question that I was downloaded during this process at the end of 2019. And it was, who am I if there was no work, no money, no world problems? Who am I then? Where's my value then? And I did not know that answer. And I associated my identity, my value, my purpose with work, labor, money, security, and philanthropy and changing people's lives and world problems. But if all of that was gone, then what would be my purpose? And that's when I started to realize my purpose is to enjoy life, to enjoy myself, to enjoy my company, and share that with others. And so I had to build this new way, I won't say build, but I had to start to embody and to practice what that looked like. So it was days where eating a banana was my purpose, enjoying French fries was my purpose, or, brushing my teeth and taking a shower was my purpose, because I did not want to live anymore, because the way that I was living majority of my life was gone. So it was like, why else am I here? So for me, that was my journey into accepting ease, because I had to see what it looked like to practice ease and still get results, still get validation, still feel worthy, And once my brain started to get evidence that ease was another way, and the truest way for me, that gave me that much more confidence in my faith that the path of ease is the healthiest way for me to embody well-being and productivity and so on and so on. So I wouldn't say that destruction is for everybody. Life destruction is the only way to enter into full self-acceptance. It doesn't have to be, but a lot of times that's a part of the path of death and rebirth because we've been so indoctrinated and so programmed. So it may feel like death and destruction, but really the thing that is being destroyed, the thing that is dying is the part of you that does not want to grow and expand.
I love that. I love that. And I was going to go there in the space of, I feel the same way, that there always has to be a death, because the part of you that doesn't want to grow and expand must die in order for you to make room for the new part of you, the new that is going to be what you need to be, what you want to be, that's going to give you what you need in this life, whatever that may be for different people, right? Because I'm not entirely convinced that those old parts of us change. I don't think they can change. I think they must die. They must be destroyed. They must be put away, burned away, brought to ashes and buried in order for the new to flourish. And I love that. And one of my favorite of your songs is Healing in My Heels. And it was one of the, I think it was the first one that I heard. And then I went on like a Toni overdose and heard probably all of them, definitely multiple times. But there's something about Healing in My Heels that I feel is just so powerful, because it gives you both. It gives you that I will nurture myself, I will take care of myself, I will pause, I will change, and I will destroy the parts of me that do not support me. One of the things that I love is that you said, and I am not quoting this verbatim, as you said it much more beautifully, but you say something along the lines of, I will no longer honor any promises or contracts, even those that I have made, if they no longer serve me. And I heard that to be so empowering, because sometimes we commit to things and people and places and circumstances, and we're like, well, I said yes to this, or well, I signed this, or well, I agreed to this, and so now I must finish it, now I must do it. And it's like, no, I mustn't. At the time when I agreed to this, my mind and my heart were in a place that said that this agreement was going to be good for me. But right now, my mind and my heart say no longer. And I have the power to say no to this, even if I agree to it at another point. And I absolutely love that she, the woman in this song, the me when I'm hearing her, right, can do all that, can do all of that breaking down, all of that saying no, all of that crying and fixing and pushing away in her damn heels. And it's just, it's such a beautiful song. What were you feeling when you put that song together? What moment in your life brought that song on?
Healing in My Heels? Oh, man. Okay, I have a few, I probably have 3 to 4 backstories of that song, like that were the brainchild of that song. But one in particular was a lot of people that I came across, healing communities. I did not match those communities. I wore blonde wigs, I wore long nails, I wore heels, and then I would switch into some Timberlands and some hoodies and some sweats. Then I would dress like a gypsy another day. Then I'll dress like a conservative Gap girl the next. Like, fashion has always been a part of my expression. And has always changed depending on the mood, depending on the season. And so whenever I'm in those healing spaces, I never felt fully accepted. So I felt like I wanted to heal, but I wanted to feel like I could be fly too. You know, that I did not have to wear ashes and cloth, and I had to look a certain way to be in my healing journey. You know, I could look unkept, I can look flashy and stylish, I can look any type of way and be in my healing journey. So that was one thought. The other thought is normalizing healing as a fly, cool thing to do. There's nothing wrong with healing. Like, there's nothing wrong with having mental illness or mental health challenges. Like, that's dope. That's fly. That is cool, because you only get more beautiful. You only shine when you heal. you only get more undeniably felt when you heal. Like, it's one thing being a messy person and not knowing it, but then being a messy person and knowing it and healing from it is a whole nother aspect that makes you dope, you know? So that was that. And then it was this other piece of just advocating the messaging of healing in a way that was like relatable, that had its relatability. It had modern words and terminology, but it also did, that terminology did not compromise the depth, the ancient knowledge and knowingness that healing was the path, that going in was the only way out, you know, to transcend the narrative that's in your bloodline, to transcend the narrative that's in your indoctrination and programming and belief system, you know. So multiple brainchilds behind that song. I mean, I could go on and on of what inspired that song, but it was a I would say a diverse range of reasons behind that song that comes from a personal space and observation when it came to healing, you know?
I love this. And now, when we speak to you now in a space like this, right? You were prepared for this interview. You knew we were going to hang out today. When you're writing your music, you come to that moment, you write it when you feel it, right? Like, but how do you transition on the days when you're not feeling like this? I feel like it's good when it's good, right? Like when we can figure out, okay, I'm vibing today, I'm doing what I got to do, I'm drinking my water, I'm taking my walks, I'm talking to the little trees and butterflies outside my yard. I have a key lime tree that's a butterfly host tree, and I go out there, I talk to all of them. Half of them have names. It is the most delicious thing. But there are days when we don't wake up like that. There are days when we wake up and it all just feels jumbled, right? There's thoughts jumbled in your head, and there's emotions that are jumbled, and when you wake up in that way, what is Toni's process to say, I feel all these things, this is the hot mess express right now? What do you do to get that in order?
You know, usually when I'm asked this question, it's in the frame of what is your ritual? What is your self-care practice? You know, and I have my self-care practice. I have my morning rituals. When I genuinely just don't want to do none of that, I ask myself these 3 questions. And they've gotten to a point where I ask them every morning because there's so much going on in the spirit world with me that I don't know the solution to address all those things. Sometimes I don't know if I'm depressed or I'm being purged of old stuff out of my energy. So I don't know all the time. So it's like, some days I'm not going to want to meditate. Like, I know what that looks like. So this is what I do every single day. If I don't do nothing else, ask myself, how am I feeling? What do I want to feel? And what actions support me feeling the way that I want to feel? That right there has been a winning gem, because I'm able to ground myself in truth and not just push through the self-care ritual, just do it because it's righteous. You know, it grounds me in how I truly feel. It's like, I feel like crap. I feel like I'm still broken. I feel unproductive. I feel worried, but I know too much to just ground me in that, because that may not be my truth. This may be a feeling that has to move through me. You know, this may be a feeling that I have to alchemize, or this may be a feeling I need to just sit in the moment right now and then release within the next couple of hours. Who knows? But at least I know what I'm feeling. I know how I want to feel. And then I can get clear, reflect, and ponder on what actions actually support me the way I'm feeling. So the second part of that answer is, there are rare days where I don't know what actions that are going to support the feeling that I want to feel. So those are days where I play. Now, play can look like staying in bed. And those of you who don't have that time privilege to do so because your moms or have a business, clients, whatever, Find, go on take on the approach of a treasure hunt mentality of like, where can I find the things? Where is my fun today? Where is my pleasure, my joy today? Okay, it's not there, it's not there. I'm telling you, that curiosity, that bold curiosity, that faith that you can find it alone is key, because you'll get the clarity. You'll get supported by your guides, by your spiritual support system, and say, she's doing the most she can. And if it's just to be curious, we're going to support that. That clarity will come, you know? And then again, the third part of that question is, if it doesn't come, being is enough. You brushed your teeth, you took the shower, you sent those emails, you sat in what was happening with your feeling, but you still showed up to your day in gentle ways, in slow ways. You canceled the day to go eat those French fries, that cake, whatever. You gave space to be true to you. You know, you're in a relationship with yourself. Just like you're in a relationship with your children and you're dealing with their mood swings, your husband's mood swings, your spouse's mood swing, your clients, different, you know, your customer, like you in a relationship with all of that, be in a relationship with you and take the most gentle approach. So all in all the formulas I just gave you, all in all, the key is to take the most gentle approach to doing what's true for you in those moments when you don't feel like following your ritual and following your personal best, if you will. Because being gentle with yourself and your truth is absolutely enough.
I love that. Being gentle with yourself and your truth is absolutely enough. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today here inside the Seizing Happy community. It has been an absolute pleasure to chat with you, and we cannot wrap this up without knowing what is next for you. How can we support you coming next? Do you got a new album coming next? Do you have a presentation live any place? What you got going on?
Well, I think I'm going to go live tonight on Instagram. I am Toni Jones. That's Toni with an I, to talk about women's history being made in well-being. Yeah, I think I'm going to talk about that tonight, just to close out, you know, March, because March is almost done, and it's Women's History Month. You know, all my music is on all streaming platforms. To stay updated on my, you know, what cities I'll be in next, you can go to iamtonijones.com. Follow me on Facebook at I Am Toni Jones. I have a Facebook page there. And then what I'm building with my manager and co-creator is really an affirmation world, an affirmation mind style, lifestyle, being style, through products, experiences, events, and opportunities that help enroll people and opt into a more loving self-talk and way of being with yourself. And so that looks like sound healing experiences, very uniquely crafted ones, though, not just something just to bring sound bowls, and no shame to anyone does it, but we just want to create that uniqueness of experience to where people walk away, and when people buy our products, they're like, what the heck just happened with me? What just happened? What did I just go to? What did I just buy? Because this is not just a normal journal. This is not just a normal event, you know? So a lot of stuff is being crafted, very intentional, very spiritual and cultural, to make it that much more special for the experience of humans. So, you know, within the next 2 years, you guys will see the drip drop of that. So that's what's next on the horizon of how I show up in the world.
I love it. And we can't wait for it. Toni, thank you again for joining us today inside the Seizing Happy community. You're amazing. Keep shining your beautiful light everywhere. Keep bringing all of this love, and keep being contagious with your just beingness, because it is absolutely delicious and it is absolutely necessary. So thank again for joining us today.
All right, peace.